Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me today. In this video, I want to talk about my 2021 reading stats. I really love watching these videos on BookTube, so of course I have to make my own each year. I have the one from last year also as a comparison, and just to be able to make a better comparison, I kind of made the same type of statistics for this year. So it's going to be quite an easy comparison. I have a total of 10 charts, pie charts for the most. So let's just look at what happened when it comes to statistics for me in 2021. But first, just a few words about my Goodreads reading challenge. This is one I set to 70 books since 2017, and each year I managed to reach this goal. In 2021, I read a total of 74 books. My best reading year was 2020, where I read a total of 87 books, which for me is a lot. But still, reading 70 books a year and last year reading 74 is quite good. Looking at the average length of a book, I think this comes out to be about 348.2 to be exact, and the total number of pages I read were 26,120 pages. So just a few extra statistics here in the beginning. But looking at how these books are divided, how many books I read each month, you can see that for the most part I had 5 months where I read 7 books each month: January, March, April, October and December. My best reading month was May, when I read 12 books. That's a lot. I have read previously maybe 10 books a month where I thought, wow, I've read a lot. But 12? I don't know, maybe there were some shorter books in there, I'm pretty sure. Otherwise, 12 books a month is like a really good reading month for me. But you can also see in November I only read 3 books, August, September 4 books. So I guess you can see that towards the end of the year, the reading slump came in. It's around the time I changed jobs as well. I really had a busy end of the year at work, so I didn't manage to read a lot in November. December spiked a little bit because, of course, I had the days off between Christmas and New Year, so I had a bit more time to read and just chill. But overall, I think if I average this out, it would be about 6 books a month, which is kind of what I've been reading for the most in these past years, a month I mean. Now, as the first statistics, I always want to look at which are the books I've read, which I own, either physically on my shelves or in e-format, audio format, and how many books I've read which I have borrowed from the library, because I borrow quite heavily from the library, and I think this is like a trend for me that I end up borrowing so much that I kind of fail to prioritize the books I physically own. And looking at 2021, this is no different from 2020 because you can see almost 3/4 of the books I have read I have borrowed from the library, and just slightly over 1/4 of them I have read, which I have owned. Now, looking at what I do from the library, I don't just borrow physical books, I also borrow ebooks, I also borrow audiobooks. Now I also have Audible, so of course those are my own audiobooks. I own them, they will count as owned. But maybe next year I will make a separate chart in which I will look at the owned books and what format these owned books are, because I think one of my goals for 2022 will be to actually read my physical books, so the books I own physically on my shelves, and not just my ebooks and my audiobooks. But yeah, this chart is pretty much the same as last year, which I hoped it would be better when it comes to my own books, but yeah, that's just the way it is. I think 2022 will be the year where I will do something about this particular pie chart. The next statistics is about the formatting of the book. So whether this is a hard copy, paperback, or hardback, whether this is an ebook or an audiobook. And as you can see here, most of the books I read are paperback or hardback, so physical copies. But of course, these are also from the library, as I already said. But as you can see, a large amount of books I actually listen to, almost 30%, which is kind of nice because I really enjoy listening to my books, and I can do it while I do all kinds of things around the house, cook, clean, commuting, whatever. I really enjoy having always audiobooks on the go, and especially when I'm tired in my eyes after a whole day sitting in front of a computer, it's just nice to just give my eyes a rest and be able to listen to books. I think for the most part I like listening to fantasy and memoirs as well, because normally they are read by the author, and that gives us a little bit extra to the whole experience. I also love listening to romances, so something really that can really switch my brain off. I think for me that really works audiobook wise, because if a book is more heavy or more on the literary side, I would love to, just spend more time with it and just be able to go back and just reread some paragraphs, chapters, and I can't really do that so well in an audiobook. And this is kind of like a similar situation to what happened in 2020, where you can see not much has changed. The hardback paperback, I'm not sure that does anything for me, because I don't know why I divided it in these two, but yeah, maybe I'll just go back to having physical copies as a category for 2022. But yeah, let me know which type of books you read more. Do you also listen to books so much as I do? I don't know, there's just something about audiobooks that I really like. Next, let's look at how many translated books I've read. And I have read almost 20% translated fiction this year, or nonfiction, I guess. And I'm really happy with this because in 2020, I barely read any translated books. If you can see from the chart comparison, I've done much better this year, and I think this is mainly due to the Invisible Cities project that really diversified my reading, and that was one of my goals for 2021, I think, to read a bit more diversely. So a project like this I can only recommend, because you really go and search and just explore literature from other countries, and you can really discover some great gems and favorite authors. I think I will continue to participate in this project in 2022. I still have some catching up to do for 2021, but I will continue. I will continue with this because I discovered so many amazing books in 2021 because of it. The next chart is looking at the books I read based on the publication year. And as you can see, most of my books are really recent books. More than three-quarters of the books I read were written after 2000. It feels right because I am interested in the newest releases. 5.4% of my reading are books from 2021, almost 10% are books from 2020, and then over 40% are from 2019 to 2010, which is, oh my God, that's quite a large chunk. And then when you look at books classics from the 18th century, 19th century, not that much there. And yeah, I think this is also quite similar to what happened the last year. I don't have anything against this pie chart. I guess it's okay. I don't mind reading recent books as well. I did think that the classics, especially the 19th century, sliver of this chart is going to be bigger than it was. But I think I also read a much more recent classics here. So that's why I guess the 19th century sliver is only almost 7%. But yeah, I just hope that I can read a bit more classics this year, and I do plan to read some more classics written by women. So hopefully this chart will look slightly different next year. I also feel like there are some decades here which are absolutely not represented in any shape or form. Think about the 70s, the 80s. I don't think there's much I read from those decades. Now, if I look at the portion of fiction versus nonfiction, I thought that this chart's gonna look much more different from the 2020 chart, but it's actually not. I would feel like it's exactly the same. So basically, in this year I read, or last year I read 16.2% nonfiction, and then the rest was fiction. And this is quite the identical chart to 2020. So yeah, I always feel like I'm gravitating towards nonfiction, and especially when I'm buying books. But apparently I don't read as many as I wish. I know that I read quite a few memoirs this year, and I think, I love reading memoirs. So I think those are the biggest chunk of this nonfiction part. I do hope to branch out a little bit in 2022 and just pick out more general nonfiction books, because I have quite a few on my shelves. Now let's look at the next chart here. As you can see, there's a lot of different genres here, and yeah, I feel pretty okay with this chart. What I didn't notice was that compared to 2020, I read less fantasy, but in 2020 I haven't read any science fiction, whereas in 2021 I read like four sci-fi books, so that kind of balances it out, because sci-fi fantasy is like kind of like, I put them kind of more or less in the same category, I guess. But I would love to pick up more science fiction in 2022. I think I really enjoyed the ones I read, and I would like to continue with that. Looking at some of the other categories, I haven't read a lot of mystery books in 2021, and I think I read two. One of them I categorized as classic, so it's not even in this chart. But I really miss reading mystery thrillers. I think I read quite a few in 2020 and also in 2019. And even though it's not my favorite genre, I do love to read them or listen to them as well, because they're kind of like, the type of books I read to switch off my brain. So I think maybe instead of those mysteries that I read previously in 2021, I picked up romance, because I haven't anticipated that I will read so many. 13.5%. That's quite a lot. And to be honest, most of these books are the Bridgerton books, which I have listened to most of the series around March, April, after watching the Netflix show, and I'm looking forward to season 2, by the way. But I don't think those books really live up to the hype. But it happened. I read them, and also towards the end of the year, I read some romance books from the Goodreads Choice Awards list, and I read The Hating Game. So I really enjoy also those type of books, because yeah, they're just nice and easy reads when you really don't have to think a lot. Yeah, other than that, I also read horror books, which I really don't. I don't think I've read any horror books up to this year. And I think this year I read like 4 or 5, something like that. And I have surprisingly enjoyed them. Maybe picking up some more classic horror would be the way to go for me, because I don't want to pick the ones that are really scary. I don't know, maybe I just enjoy the ones that are a bit more unsettling, even though it's hard to read them, but having them sprinkled in here and there, I think would work fine for 2022 as well. I think the biggest change in my statistics when it comes to comparison to 2020 is authors by continent. Looking at my 2020 chart, it's quite sad looking, because most of my reads were books from North America, the US here, and of course Europe. And in case of Europe, this was mostly the UK. So this is, I think, one of my biggest goals for 2021, was to diversify this specific chart. So I think when I discovered the Invisible Cities project, I was like, yes, this is gonna help me to do that. I also really wanted to read books from South America, because I don't think I've read any books from South America since 2017, when I started really documenting my reading. And I'm happy to report that this has gone much better this year. So when you look, North America is still quite a large number of books. But if you look, Africa is almost 15%, South America almost 11%, Asia 16.2%, and Europe 18.9%, even though most of Europe is still the UK. But I'm really happy how this diversified, and of course that Asia, Africa, and South America got a bigger chunk from the pie. So this will definitely continue like this, I guess. I will keep focusing on reading books from South America as well. But also reading the books for the Invisible Cities project will also keep this chart quite diverse. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. And now to look a little bit more into the author's home country, I try to make it a bit more interesting because of course, because of the Invisible Cities project, I've read a lot of books from different countries. So I have like 22 books from 22 different countries. So I kind of put these in an other category because I don't think it would make sense to see a pie chart where 22 books are from one country. I don't know. And then you can see USA 33.3% and the UK 16.7% are the biggest chunks apart from other. But I have read more than one books from several countries: Egypt, Mexico, Nigeria, Argentina, Iran, and Iraq. So again, this is due to the Invisible Cities project, but also that I wanted to focus more on South America. Unfortunately, I only read more books from Argentina, but I think this year is gonna be the year when I focus also on other South American countries. I think I read books from Chile, though Peru, so it wasn't just Argentina, but I will definitely try to diversify this a little bit more this year. Looking at the author's gender, I basically categorized it as male, female, and other, and for other I have a book by an author duo here. And this chart looks exactly like the one from last year. Mostly I read the female authors, which I'm really happy with, and of course, yeah, a quarter or more or less that is of male authors. And then I wanted to look also at how diverse the books were when it comes to the author. So I compared how many books I read from authors, white authors and BIPOC authors. And looking at the chart from last year, this is a bit better. And of course, this is also mainly due to the Invisible Cities project because I read books from a lot of different countries, Asia, Africa as well. So this made this BIPOC part quite large for this year, and I'm quite happy with that. So these are all the charts I had for you. It was really interesting for me to look back at 2020 as well, but there were some changes in certain areas, so I'm happy to report that some of the goals I had for 2021 I have actually succeeded in meeting. But in some areas, of course, there's always room for improvement. Overall, I'm quite happy with how everything turned out, especially since I discovered so many interesting books in 2021. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.